Good morning from Panhandle Outdoors, America's only daily outdoor TV show. Your source for fishing, hunting, and information for folks who enjoy the great outdoors. Now sit back, relax. It's Panhandle Outdoors.
Good Tuesday morning. Welcome to Panhandle Outdoor. Today is Tuesday, October the 9th. We want to run through a weather report with you. We've got a high around 85 today with a low of 76. 30% chance of rain, east-northeast 12 to 14, so could be a little blowing out there today. Sunrise is 6:40 with the sunset at 6:18. Tide situation today is a little bit better than we just have two tides. The low is at 6:13 a.m. with the high at 11:09 p.m. So you got a pretty fair tide movement during the day. Peak fishing times are running 1:03 to 3:03 p.m. and 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. And I've noticed that coming off of these four tides, during the four tides and just off of it, that the peak fishing time is somewhere around sunrise, but it's only about an hour instead of extended back. So, you know, the sunrise effect and the tide like that, and it's supposed to produce some really good fishing time. So a little just something I noticed as we've been looking through this. Apalachicola River is at 2 feet and it's leveling off a little bit there. This is going to be real good news for squirrel seasons that's coming up. And then the Choctawhatchee at Caryville is 3.9 with the slow fall. So they're both pretty low. And for those of you who haven't heard, if you go to the lower landing at Howard's Creek, you're not going to find good old Charles there anymore because that has been sold to the county. Still open for use, but I understand there are plans for that to redesign that ramp and parking spaces and maybe have a bathroom in there, and of course probably have to have a little pay box to use it. But yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with Charles. You know, he just worked 12-15 hours a day for all those years. Just can't imagine what he's doing with himself now. Just kidding, Charles, I love you. He's always there to help you with the boat. We're going to take this break. We're going to continue yesterday's discussion. We're going to talk about the water being a little colder and where you go, what you do. So we'll be right back. Welcome back. We have reassembled the panel, and don't bother adjusting your sets. This is actually how we look.
No mug shots.
Yeah, what you see is what you get. So yesterday, if you were fortunate enough to join us, we were talking about the water temperature starting to change and some of the approaches that we take to fishing this water and continuing on. And I'd like to carry it on to, you know, the water now. If we move on into November, December, and we start to get significantly cooler, you know, again, the fish are going to be less confused if we have a more consistent pattern of winter and cold. So the search pattern narrows, you know, to find the fish. So, and also, and Artie is here, a big part about this, Matt as well, is flounder come into play this time of year, sheephead in the past, and even pompano. So we need to expand our normal redfish and trout. So somebody jump in. It's colder now. Where are we at?
One of the first things that comes to my mind is learning to adapt or being ready to adapt to a sudden cold front. Because that, you know, even as we transition from fall to winter, it's still pretty gradual, but at some point here in the near future, we'll have one of those nights where it's going to get down 20 or 30 degrees over a matter of 12 hours, and to be on the water the next morning and expect conditions or the fish to act the way they have, say, over the last month is unrealistic. So that's one of the first things I think of when we get into winter, is learning to react and adjust to a sudden weather change.
That's right. You know, one of the things that also too, Matt, speaking about that, is that you have to look at where you're fishing. For example, in the winter, as we roll off through the fall into that early part of winter, then the tides start to change and the tides get smaller. You know, a high tide in the winter might be almost a foot, where right now it could be 2 feet.
Right.
So if you've got a good north wind and you like to fish on the north end of the bay, you may have no water. So you have to start to start planning now, be looking for where your winter spots are going to be, and understand that the wind affects the tide just as much as the moon affects the tide in the winter.
Sure it does.
So you have to really plan ahead. A couple of years ago, Bill and I tell a story when we're doing seminars all the time. Bill and I had fished the day before. It was in a winter. Fished, it was a south wind. The tides were pretty good. Next morning, the wind's blowing. We catch a few fish. The next morning, the wind is howling out of the north. We couldn't even get in the boat where we were the day before. We go to the south end of the bay and get over there, start finding those bottoms, and we found those redfish schooling.
Yep.
You know, and we sit there and just wore the redfish out. Those redfish would just pass us back and forth. You know, we just power pulled down and wait. Now, if we just kept staying on the north side of the bay, all the water on the north side of the bay had been blown to the south side.
Right.
Well, you know, it piled up over there, so we had more water over there because of the wind. You just have to think there's so many moving parts as we go into this winter, late fall, early winter transition.
Learn to look ahead, and I'm an early morning guy.
Right.
I like to be on the water first thing, but it's like already mentioned earlier, that's not always the best time to be on the water, and sometimes you learn the hard way, especially me with a charter. If I start at 6 and we fish through that first few hours of harsh conditions,
That's right.
Right at the cold front or right after the cold front's moved through, and we don't really do much. And as I'm working towards finishing up my charter, start to see the fish become active, and really probably should have fished from 9 until after
later.
lunch.
Yeah.
Well, like you were saying, if it's a real strong cold front and that water temperature drops real quick, then fish are going to shut off.
Yeah. And it doesn't take a whole lot of water. It can change 2 or 3 degrees in the winter and shut them off. Like you guys found those trout, it only took 1 degree.
Right. That's it. So just try to take all that into, and that's where really studying the conditions, start to kind of understand the science of it a little more, and
Paying attention.
Paying attention
when you're
And that
out.
northwest wind can get that bait choppy.
That's
it can.
right.
It sure can.
You know, Michael and I sometimes, Michael and I sometimes we'll go, especially this time of year, we'll take our measure board, our tournament redfish measure board, and we'll go along and there'll be a hole. We'll try to see how much deeper that hole is and the holes around it. We want to know, is that a 3 or 4 more inch or 6 inch deeper hole? Because in the winter, those fish are going to pile up in those holes. You know, and so I mean, really and truly, sometimes in the winter, 1 or 2 degrees or 5 or 6 inches of water could be the difference of what you're going to do.
Absolutely.
All right, time for the first break already, but stay tuned. We'll be right back with some more. All right, welcome back. I hope you've enjoyed us so far. I know we're having a great time, especially off camera, but we wanted to address a little bit about tides.
Wintertime, you know, Mark mentioned it earlier. The tide, if you get a big tide, that's a 1 foot tide.
That's right.
The wind actually controls, because of the north wind, so much north wind will control the water in the bay more than the tide does.
That's right.
So if you find an area that holds fish, you want to go to that area when it's the warmest part of the day, regardless of the tide.
That's right.
And I have proved this so many times. I've caught more big, good trout between 11 and 2, which is the worst time to fish in the summertime, because in the wintertime, the water's the warmest then.
That's right.
And if
That's
there's
right.
water there, and the tide only moves a little bit anyway, they will be there.
That's right.
And so they're used to not having a lot of tide, but they will get in the warmest spot, because that's where, if there is any bait, that's where the bait's going to be.
That's right.
So very important, because when everybody was hunting, Dad and I always fished in the wintertime. So, which we were, you know, we did it enough that we proved that out many times.
That's right.
One of the things I do on the water is you can look at whatever tide chart or app you use to forecast the tide. That's general. A lot of times I think people take that as
the gospel.
It's the gospel, and
right.
it's anything but,
That's
because
right.
you have all these other variables. And one other thing with the winter that a lot of people overlook the north wind, but it's also barometric pressure. The barometric pressure is a lot of what forces that water out of the bay.
That's
so,
a bass fisherman talking.
And then with that being said, say some of these storm conditions we have, or hard south winds, that'll actually push water into the bay. Yeah. So no app or forecasting measure can take that stuff into account.
That's
so
right.
What I'm saying is the real time. So what I want to do is when I'm out there, I actually like to find something fixed in the water.
That's right.
A piling, crab trap buoy, even grass, watching it, what direction's it going, how fast is it going, is it really coming in, or is it going out, or is it stopped, or is this tide 2 hours early or 2 hours late? Really, when you're out there fishing, really try to find a way to gauge it.
Moving on.
And then
oysters
and oysters, and then dictate base your plan on that, and use the prediction as a general guide. But realize, just like our weather, you can get up in the morning and see the weather forecast and not expect to get rained on, and you walk outside and it's raining. It's no different. So just try to pay more attention to that. It'll help you a lot.
Yeah, and that's excellent. And also, you use some common sense out there. Don't rely strictly on those numbers, not just to be repetitive, but from another aspect, if you are, as we do, working your way into lagoons and freshwater creeks that are coming in, and when you can get in on a high tide quote, you got to pay attention, because coming out, you may not have that water. Now, I don't want to say how I know this, but those boats don't run in sand.
No, I will tell you, and Bill's point is very well made, especially for people who are coming here or starting to fish. Although we got a lot of people who moved here, especially a lot of bass guys. Right. We all of us love to bass fish. Right. And these guys will, they knew at 1.1 foot tide they could get in and out of a spot. In the winter, they may get a 1 foot tide. With the winds blowing out of the north 15 miles an hour, that water's only 6. They hit more like a 0.6 tide. Next thing you know, they're running in there. What's wrong? Well, that's what it is. That wind, just like you said, is affecting everything.
And that was the high.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Now when you're in there, hey, I tell you what, it wasn't that long ago, we let a Sterling spend the night overnight somewhere. Yeah.
Well,
we got in and couldn't get out.
Nothing more irritating if you want to go fish, like you said, a little creek, and there's no water.
That's right.
And you can't even get to it. So then your game plan changes.
That's right. That's right, Artie.
That's right. Funnier to watch the two 6'4", 6'5" guys out of a flats boat pushing it across.
That'd be
in the wintertime trying to get to water.
That'd be
that's right.
Again,
electronics folks.
Not a bad time to wait either.
No,
if that's something you want to do and you got a good pair of waders.
Yeah, exactly.
Good pair of waders. Equipment is key there, but that's an excellent time to wait.
That's
also.
Right. That's right.
Depending on the type of bottom too, because if you got that sawgrass bottom, it's tough.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, something else the mayor said I think is a spot on, talking about fishing in the middle of the day versus going early in the morning. We like us, we want to be on the water as early as we can right now. Right. But the reality is you have to look at yourself like the fish. Is it comfortable for you to be outside? It's comfortable for the fish to be up and feeding. That's just how you got to look at it in the winter.
That's true.
And I think the tides are kind of reversed in the wintertime. It's low in the morning.
That's right.
It's low and lower.
Yeah,
that's right.
You have the low tide, the lower tide.
And so early morning, no water, your coldest temperature of the day, and a lot of times it can be some of the highest wind. You put those three together, it can be several hours of unproductive fishing before really
colder on the water.
That's right.
A lot of searching fishing,
a lot colder.
too. Slow things down. You got to really vary it.
Yeah.
The bait that you put in the water, how you fish it, it's just.
That's right.
You've got to do. You just have to. You have to pull the whole box out.
You got to slow it down, man. You got to slow it down, like Mayor said yesterday.
Just continue to fish till something does work.
That's right.
At that point.
That's right.
Stick with it, and persistence normally pays off. And it's nice if you have the luxury to fish a full day, because when you're out there just a few hours at a time, sometimes it's hard to put something together and really take anything away from it. But if you get a chance to fish 6, 7, 8, 10 hours over that period, over that amount of time, between the conditions changing, the tide changing, and you move around, and you're a pretty decent fisherman, you keep baits in the water, you're eventually going to have some level of success.
No doubt.
And maybe be able to expand on it.
That's right.
It kind of sounds like the blind hog's going to find an egg.
Yeah, that's pretty much.
Well, it is
it's
that
a little
way
more scientific than that because of the way you're working it, but you know, persistence. We were at Thursday. It was slow. Greg and I were on Thursday. We're surrounded by 3 or 4 boats, and it was slow. We worked inside an area. We worked a mouth. We worked outside. Couple of fish, and then everybody's gone. You know, 2 hours later, we're on the 8th redfish, the 9th redfish. We got 2 big keeper trout, and we're the only boat on the water. You know, so stick with the program. Keep changing baits, keep changing water to find out where they are.
That's right.
So,
I told Bill I was shaking them off so they wouldn't see us catch.
Yeah. And you may find it's hard to believe. I have a tendency to get kind of loud with the big redfish on. I know a couple of you have witnessed that. Greg's up there trying to tell me to shut up, stop yelling. But anyway, we've got one more break to pay the bills, and we'll come back and wrap this up. All right, welcome back. Before we get back into the panel here, I just want to say, if this is something that you have enjoyed, send Winston an email. Let him know if there's a subject that you'd like us to address, a how-to or how to rig this, or what somebody's using, or anything like that. You know, we're not going to give you GPS coordinates to the spots that we're going to, because part of the fun of this is we spend lifetimes running around trying to find these places and giving ourselves options. It's not being selfish, it's just when you do that, it's a lot more rewarding. Anyway, if you didn't enjoy the show, then email Mark. If you did, email Winston, let him know, send your ideas, and if we don't know it, we'll make something up about it.
I can say for myself personally, I've enjoyed it, because if you and I just sit down to do a show, we pretty much know the parameters and the direction. This morning, going back and forth, and everybody having their input and different thoughts, to me, it's more beneficial. We cover more, and you get a little different perspective.
Yeah,
and I would imagine the viewers have.
All right, so let's talk. Artie, you need to step up here. We need to start talking about flounder.
Flounder.
Outside of sticking them now.
No, I hadn't done that. It was fall migration. The flounder's bunching up. I like the live bait fish with the flounder.
Now, is your live bait
rig
changing in the wintertime? What do you?
Whatever we can get.
Yeah,
what we call tiger stripes.
Right.
Or finger mullet. Probably about maybe 3 or 4 inches, and slow. You're going to feel him reach up there and grab it. Don't set the hook.
Yeah.
Just start slowing. Just start pulling him up real slow and feed till you feel dead weight. Reel down on him.
Yeah.
Set the hook. But a lot of people, when they come up to a flounder, the first thing they do is want to bring that flounder to the top. Well, that flounder is going to open his mouth and he's going to shake.
Yep.
So until you get the land in that, kind of keep him just below the surface, scoop him up.
Good point.
You lose a lot of fish right there.
Yeah. And
now, what are you targeting now? Are you going offshore to some of the?
Right now, just the deep holes. And then when they go offshore, hit the little inshore spots, about 60, 65 foot of water.
I get a lot of questions about that, and I think there's a general conception that when the flounder migration starts, there's just this mass wave of all the flounder move out at once, and just tremendous amount of fish. And in reality, my take on it is it's much more spread out, and you have to be out there a lot to spend enough time. And Artie's referring to a hole where he might do real well and it might be real productive. Well, he could fish that hole a day or two early and not catch a fish.
Except lizardfish.
Except lizardfish.
Big ones.
Have bull minnows dying of old age on a hook, and then literally a day, I mean, it could be 6 hours, it could be 36 hours. That hole could be full of fish, but if you're behind and those fish continue to move on, then you're not going to catch anything either. So I guess where I'm going with, there's a lot of places that they aren't. Yeah. And being able to have a list of options throughout the bay in different areas, and might fish 12 places, and maybe 1 or 2 of those really have some fish and somewhere you can focus and catch some numbers.
And then you come back inshore and put pompano jig on and ease down between the first sandbar and second sandbar in the trough and catch a pompano.
Are you basically doing that with your trolling motor? Did you say you
let the wind.
yourself?
Yeah, let the wind Wind blow too.
Or drift if you can get it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
We were talking about that, and that's something that's
That is fun.
It's a lot of fun, and even on a day where they don't bite, there's a lot worse places you could be than right on the beach, just easing along, enjoying the scenery, and throwing a jig. Yes, that's
Minus the wave runners.
Minus the wave runners, which they're not as prevalent.
When it's cold enough, they won't be there. You get out there in November, and people say, "Oh, where do I need to find structure?" Yeah, it's great to find structure and fish on that with your live bait, but you can drift, okay, right out in 50 or 60 feet of water. What we've done in the past, you get you pinfish and cut you a strip. You have a slip lead and a good size rod, because you're fishing in deep water, a little bit bigger than the regular spinning rods. Cast it out, and as you drift toward where you casted, you're just gathering and keeping that lead up off the bottom, and you're dragging that piece of chauffeur. Thousands of flounder that we've caught,
And,
a lot of small ones, but they are out there.
You know, you miss a lot of flounder by reacting to that first feel.
You gotta
And then
make sure
I've heard all this stuff about, well, you count to 5 and set the hook. Well, 5 may not do it, it might. But I think that approach is just, that slow roll, and you feel that tick on it with him grabbing it, and there's usually another one. And then you just slowly bring up the slack, and then when you feel that weight, whether it's a count of 5 or 15, and then you hammer him at that point.
It's a very subtle bite, one that a lot of people on the boat have trouble getting a feel for, but I don't think there's a better scenario as far as a testament for braided line. You will catch fish, you will feel bites and catch fish with flounder that you would never otherwise, and you're overcoming wind and current. It's such a subtle bite that you wouldn't feel it with monofilament.
Good monofilament tippet or leader, and I start to use some of those wire hooks, because you're going to get hung up when you're around rocks and things, and with that line it'll straighten out. You can get some of that back.
Well, it's slow fishing.
We got it.
It's slow fishing.
It is slow fishing. Very slow fishing.
Methodical.
Thanks for being here. Thanks to all these gentlemen who came in to talk about this and give up their time. We hope you enjoyed it, and God bless you.
God bless you.
Thanks for watching America's only daily outdoor TV show, Panhandle Outdoors with Winston Chester, featuring hunting, fishing, and other activities and information to help you enjoy the great outdoors. Join us next time for Panhandle Outdoors.